All right, guys, focusing on our first big segment on PST this week, and that is the US men's national team losing to Germany, but they're following up with a big win against Ghana in these October friendlies. Nick, I'm going to come to you first. What did we learn, mate, from those two games? Any big takeaways for you? Because one was okay for about 30 minutes and then it unraveled, and then the other one was pretty good overall. So I feel like there was a lot of learning that we can do from this US men's national team international break.
Yeah, and I think an interesting setup when you consider that this was a Germany team that couldn't really sleepwalk because they were trying to impress their new coach. And there was a new system to be learned, and new guys were being tried in different roles. And the flip side of that with Ghana being in, I guess, a similar position of sorts with Chris Hughton. We had Greg Berhalter's team going up against two very good managers that we've seen do very, very good things. And all I can take away from it is the old Jims and Joes versus X's and O's thing. Man, the team looks so much better when Tyler Adams is out there. So I think the argument is, do they have the depth to win at a major tournament against a team of Germany's class? No. Can they get by against that next tier of teams? Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, right, Andy? Because I think we saw for a spell there at the start of the game against Germany in East Hartford when Pulisic scored, and just the way that they were combining and causing Germany a few problems. Like to Nick's point there, the talent, the ability there is there. But that top-level team, top-tier team in the world, which Germany are, even though they've been on a downward spiral recently, with that level of quality, they're going to figure it out in-game, right, and cause you different problems. And I think Bill Harter said about it that Germany changed formation several times during the game, and they couldn't quite come to terms with them after the equalizer there. So what were your takeaways? Because, two very different tests, but some good tests as well, because we haven't seen them come up against teams really of this caliber back-to-back in a long, long time.
Yeah, coming to terms with the opponent's tactical changes is Greg's job, to be fair. And I say that as someone who has backed Greg Berhalter for the majority of his tenure, and even to bring him back as U.S. men's national team head coach after everything that happened last winter. I do think that his ideas fit for the team and everything, but that is something that he has maybe not excelled at during his time as head coach, and he probably needs to work on, and I think will sharpen as they move forward, hopefully Copa America 2024, and obviously World Cup in 2026. I'll say this about the team. I feel better now about the first 11, the starting group, the first team, if you will, than I ever have before. The way that they started that game against Germany, having almost everybody but Tyler Adams effectively available, probably if the World Cup started next week, I think that's 9 of 11 players that probably you would want to be in the starting lineup. And so we got a real look at what the best of the best team could possibly look like, and they looked really good for 30 minutes. Obviously, the second half really got away from them. Germany even pulled the game back towards them late in the first half and kind of took over, and the response wasn't there from this team. But, yeah, I think Nick hit the nail right on the head is the top-tier teams, not quite there. But everybody else, it feels like we have moved to the top, the tippy top of that next tier and trying to push on and get into that next tier. And to see Pulisic and carry over his club form for the national team is really encouraging, because he's been good for club, bad for country. He's been bad for club, good for country. He's never really been able to sync up the two at any point during his career. And to see him just carry that over from what he's doing at Milan right now, I'm very, very excited to see what he does the rest of the season and how he's able to lift the rest of the team as well.
Yeah, I think obviously having Gio Reyna back in the mix for this group of games was excellent as well, to see that quartet of Pulisic, Reyna, Weah and Balogun in attack that we've wanted to see for a long time now. And that gives me a lot of faith moving forward that, as you guys said, anybody outside that top 7 or 8 teams in the world, the USA can really go toe-to-toe with anybody and cause them a lot of problems with those attacking weapons that they have there. And next step, I guess we're talking about November now, right? The game's coming up. We now know the draw for the CONCACAF Nations League quarterfinal has paired the US with Trinidad and Tobago, which is a decent draw, I think, for the US.
Funny of CONCACAF, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, the winner gets a Copa America spot for the 2024 tournament in the US next summer. So, yeah, Nick, when we look at this game, this kind of matchup, this is key, right, in terms of the US taking that next step by getting the extra tournament experience, and for this young team to go to Copa America. This is massive for them. So, and they are massive favourites against Trinidad and Tobago. Looking at their roster, not a lot of familiar names there. But dare I say, the US team has underestimated a Trinidad and Tobago side before, and we all know what happened on that occasion. So that's not going to be happening probably ever again, right? There's one team that they're not going to be fired up and focused against. It's Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, look, I don't want to underestimate them as well, but I think in 95, over 2 legs, 99 out of 100 cases, the U.S. is going to advance. I think what will become interesting is how they continue to negotiate. So I don't want to dwell on Adams here because that's a huge part of it. But what I do want to say is, Johnny Cardoso did some good things there, and the key component there is the man in that position. So we won't say Adams because to make a Premier League comparison, there is a little bit of a Manchester United problem here where Reina, if he's allowed, and Pulisic are allowed the freedom that, say, Bruno Fernandes has when he's got really good players behind them, they can hang with anybody in the world. But if that position is not satisfied, all of a sudden, I think Andy wrote about this in his preview as well, all of a sudden you don't have that freedom with Reina because you have to choose 3 of those 4 players because you don't have that man who's going to do the work. And I think that's maybe sometimes why we've seen Weston McKennie kind of foisted into that role because he's going to do the defensive work. And it's not that Reina won't do it. I mean, he got stuck into plenty of duels there. It's not a strength when you're trying to, on a home World Cup soil or a home Copa America, really compete with the top teams. So what I'll be interested to see is, can they firm that up? Because the update that you gave us on Pro Soccer Talk a few weeks back about Tyler Adams, they may not have him. So someone like Johnny Cardoso or Luca De La Torre showing us something different, or another wrinkle from Greg Berhalter may be imperative because, I mean, Adams is kind of drifted into where Pulisic was a couple of years ago, where we're wondering, is this hamstring going to be a career-long thing, not to be daunting about it?
Yeah, no, it's certainly concerning, the level of time he's spent out with that injury to re-injure it again. It's kind of a strange one to be out that long for a hamstring injury. So it's obviously a very serious situation, and hopefully he's back sooner rather than later, playing for Bournemouth, playing for the US national team. And Andy, I think the last point on this for me is that, with this game leading to potential Copa America qualification, what the next step is for this team is to beat more top 10 teams, and you'll get those opportunities against a lot of the South American teams this summer if they get past Trinidad and Tobago. So that is the next step, right? Because we haven't really ever seen this. I mean, you're looking at the record for Greg Berhalter against top 20 teams in the world. I mean, Mexico, usually the team that the US beats. That's where most of their wins have come. But other than that, that is the final hurdle, it feels like, to give that team confidence that they can do it. And then, as we said, challenge when 2026 rolls around, be there challenging the big boys, hopefully, for the whole trophy and the whole tournament.
Yeah, it's the great thing about potentially what Copa America could become if it kind of almost combines CONMEBOL and CONCACAF together and make this a regular thing at that halfway point of the World Cup cycle, to have, all due respect to the Caribbean nations and Central America, who the U.S. has done pretty well historically, especially with the first team at the Gold Cup, to have that top tier competition. And I'm not even just talking Brazil and Argentina. You go further down in South America, and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 teams out of South America are really, really good competition and a great litmus test, again, at that halfway point of the cycle. So yes, fingers crossed, obviously, that they qualify and get there next summer. It would be a bit weird if the tournament's here and the U.S. men's team is not in the tournament, but the experience that they will take from that, with players coming into the prime parts of their careers, setting up for the World Cup on home soil, it sets up absolutely perfectly. 180 minutes against TNT. We've been here before.
If they were to lose, it's important to point out that in the playoff matches, you could still get somebody from Jamaica or Canada is going to be in that draw. So it's not even a sure thing where you say, oh, well, if you blow this. So really intriguing by CONCACAF and a lot of fun.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock. And be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you there.